Hello, everyone, and welcome to our lecture 12. This is your professor, Jacqueline Corley, and today we are going to be talking about privacy and security in information technology. Now, you probably are wondering, okay, why are we talking about this? Data and Goliath was all about privacy and security, right? But that one is a little bit more in depth, but there are some things that I really wanted to share with you guys that you can kind of put into action today as you finish, listening to this lecture. But it's something I really want you guys to kind of take into consideration and really understand about privacy and security. All right. So, what we're going to be talking about is what is privacy and what are the OECD Fair Information Practices and what's really, so important about the privacy of the US? I think you'll find really something interesting from that as I share with you guys. And then also just some different computer compromises as well that you need to be aware of. Okay. So I want to start this off with a review question. We talked about at the beginning of this course the importance of technology and why it exists in our world. So, in the discussion section of our course, I want you to tell me, why does technology exist in our world today? Okay, if we are, really wanting to use technology, but we have to be, aware of a lot of the, technological things going on, or the privacy and security that we need to be aware of. Why is it that we are needing to revisit, technology, and why do we need to revisit its existence? And the primary reason is because I think a lot of times when we look at privacy and security, we think of that as something negative. And technology was created to enhance our world, but I think sometimes when we take into consideration privacy and security, we tend to think, oh wow, why do we need privacy and security if this is supposed to enhance our world? So really take a moment to answer that question in discussion questions of our course. Okay, so I want you to just kind of learn some things about modern devices and privacy. Okay, back in 1890, there were two men named Lois D. Brandis and Samuel D. Warren, and they determined that in 1890 it was much harder to violate privacy. Today, privacy can be violated unknowingly, and probably one of the best examples I can give you is, social media. Let's say you're on the elevator with, let's say, the president, right? And you happen to be on the elevator with him. Now, you may not necessarily be wanting to plan a demise against the president or plan to assassinate him. But what the government has already done is they've already ran your name across social media just to make sure that you are okay and you're not somebody who is really going to be after the president. And just like you want to be safe, so does the president. Okay. So the key point here is your image deserves sufficient safeguards against improper circulation. Okay. So you want to make sure that in everything that you do, that you don't want information that doesn't need to be circulated getting circulated. Okay. So you have rights to privacy that you may or you may not be aware of, but you have rights to certain privacy. But yet, in that example, so does the president. So he has to be able to run your name, just in case, so that they can understand, okay, you're not after him or you're somebody that's okay. You're just a regular person being on the elevator trying to get to where you're going. Okay. Because that can happen and they understand that, but they also want to keep the president safe as well. So that's one way that you may unknowingly may not realize that your privacy is being violated. Okay. Because they can run your name across all social media. So be careful. All right. So one thing with privacy is there are some 21st century shopping concerns that we need to discuss. Okay. Your check, credit card, and debit card. Okay. Probably the biggest example with that is Target and all those bank accounts being compromised through their red card system. Okay. All those Target red discount red cards, you get 5% off. They're connected to your bank account. Okay. So check, credit, and debit card, you don't want to be giving out, your account numbers to people, even your routing numbers, even though most people have the same routing number as you because they're at the same bank. But you don't want to be giving those out unless you are trying to pay for something, or you just don't want to be randomly giving those out, of course. And same thing with your credit and debit cards. You don't want to be using those on things that you really know you don't need to be using them on, or give somebody your credit card or debit card to use, or even give out your numbers on your credit and debit card, okay? Because all that is connected to private information. Mailing and online orders, okay? You want to be careful with those as well, because you know there's one thing that I noticed that was happening actually this Christmas season. Um, one of my sisters was the victim of someone stealing money out of the card that my family members had sent her, and so she never got the mail. I think she got the mail, but she didn't get the money. There were three people that sent her money, and two of the money got stolen. So always be careful of that, because if you, let's say, if they were mailing a check, you never want to mail checks either, especially if they are a large lump sum of money or anything like that. If you have a company that mails you a check, I know in the online business that I'm in, they mail checks. But as you make money in business and stuff like that, you don't want that stuff mailed. You want to make sure that you can get that direct deposited for safety purposes. Okay, and with online orders too, I know they have the option of saving your credit card information, which it does make it easier, but sometimes, especially if your account gets hacked, you want to make sure that probably refrain from that and just type in your debit card every time, especially if you tend to lose debit cards or have them deactivated. It'll just be a lot less hassle for you to have to go in there and remove it. So those are just some things to remember with mail and online orders. And then preferred customer numbers, all right? So some businesses actually have preferred discount customers where you sign up and they give you an ID and you can log in under that ID and make orders. Okay, so you have to be careful with giving out those numbers as well, because if you give out that number, people could order underneath your information. So be careful of that. Make sure you keep that private. And then product service agreement registrations. Okay, so um, whenever you register for a product, especially if you buy a new computer, there's service agreement registrations that sometimes come with that. Um, and one of those things that you also have to recognize is that that includes your data as well, and it includes private info. So you want to make sure that those who have those service agreements are the ones who really need them, and that if you have copies of it for yourself, that you keep that for yourself, because a lot of times those types of things and that data can get breached as well. So you want to make sure that you keep all that information private. There are four main types of transaction control. Okay. And there's one extra one that I'm going to give you guys as well, but there are four main types. Number one is no uses. This means you can delete information after the payment clears. So the example I'm going to give you guys is at the CLO minerals auction. So one of the things that we did at the Commissioners of the Land Office is we had real estate auctions and minerals auctions. And one thing that we did with the online minerals auction is people would bid online. And if they weren't the winning bids, then what we did is we cleared out their bank account information. But if they did win the bid, we went ahead and charged that account. Okay, so that's an example of no uses. Now, approval or opt-in, this means permission to use your transaction info. So you can give them permission, okay? Or you can do an opt-in, and probably the easiest example I can give you with an opt-in is, let's say you come across something and something asks you to put your email address and name into it, okay? And you access that, that's an opt-in, okay? But that means you are giving people permission to use your information. Now, next is objection or opt out. Okay, so you can also choose not to have your information used. Okay, so internal use is another one. It means that information is used with you only. Okay, so a good example of this is store internal use in the stores. They um, the only way that the store will actually use your information is for internal use to assess your transaction history. Okay, so same thing with Amazon. That's internal use to assess your transaction history. So the next time you log into Amazon, it will pull up things that you may be interested in based on your last purchases. And then no limits, information used in any kind of way you want. Okay, which you don't want no limits on your transactions. All right, that's probably not the best way to go, because then you don't know how your information is being used. Okay. Now, the definition of privacy that I'm going to give you guys is the right of people to choose freely under what circumstances and to what extent they will reveal themselves, their attitude, and their behavior to others. So, what this emphasizes is that you have the ability to choose what you want people to see. Okay. It is especially true on social media. Okay. Yes, they have options, especially on Instagram, to make your account private and all those things. But to be honest, I don't think anything on social media is necessarily private, even if you only show it to certain people, because, like I said earlier, the government can see anything that you post. So you want to make sure that you are posting things that you would want people to see, or you are sharing things with people that you want people to know. Okay, if you don't want someone to know it, don't share it. Okay. So I want you to recognize your role in this, in privacy. Okay. That is the one thing I want you to recognize, because you have the right to freely share under whatever circumstances that you want to reveal yourself to people. And that's what privacy is. Okay. Which means nobody else is in control of how you want to display yourself to people. Okay. Now, there are two big threats to privacy. One of them is government, as I already mentioned. Okay. This is the scariest one, but they usually have the most access simply because of the example that I gave earlier with the US president on the elevator. Okay, they have reasons for that, because they need to make sure that he is protected, and all other types of government things are protected as well. Next is business. Now, there are two types of privacy threats for business. Number one is employee surveillance, and number two is the use of business related information. So, employee surveillance is pretty much where you have cameras throughout the workplace, and things like that. You just want to ensure that you don't put cameras in the wrong places, such as bathrooms, um, offices, all those different types of things. You don't put cameras in there. Now, we do have cameras in our classrooms. Okay, those are public areas where people are going to be, so there's cameras in there. But there's no cameras in the offices, no cameras in the bathrooms, all those private areas. There's no cameras in there. Okay. Secondly, use of business related information. Okay, so so one thing that you really have to remember is that, let's say you apply for a job, okay, and you go into HR and they have you fill out all these forms. That's business related information that you're having to sign. But, that's still honestly a threat to privacy as well, because even though there's a certain person assigned to handle that information, that person has to agree to other, you know, that person has to agree to other parts of the the spectrum along those lines, because they have to agree to not share your information with other people. So such information could be, your salary, or you know um, your emergency contacts, who you are giving your beneficiaries to if for some reason you were to pass away. All that information is business related, because in the event that you did pass away, they would have to go forward through with those steps. But it would involve that business. So that's why it's called business related information. But that person in HR would really have to make sure that they keep that private. Now, one example that I wanted to give you is those Facebook third party websites. Okay. So you might see those little examples of people taking those surveys like what movie star best describes you or what's your lifetime quote, and you click on those and you let them run your information on through your social media, and they, but based on a certain algorithm, they give you back the quote that best describes you or the actor or the actress that best um, describes you. Okay, you have to be careful with those because you are voluntarily giving them your information to do that. So I do want you all to know that. All right, that goes along with voluntary disclosure, which we're going to talk about next. This is the choice to freely reveal information in exchange for benefits. Okay, so an example is your employee benefits that you have through your job. Okay, that's the example that I just gave you with the HR situation where you're filling out maybe your beneficiary form or your emergency contact or health insurance, dental insurance, visual insurance, all those different things. Some other examples are when you're going to the doctor and you have to give them information such as symptoms of how you've been feeling in order for them to be able to give you the proper diagnosis. Credit card companies, you give your information to them in order to apply for a credit card. They keep your information if they approve it as well. Okay. Employer email. Okay. So you have an email address with your employer. Now, we all have one here with OBU, and I work for OBU, so I have an OBU email. Okay, so you sometimes give out that information in exchange for a benefit of somebody emailing you or contacting you. Okay, and then your rights as a citizen here in the United States as well. Okay. You have to give voluntary information such that you are, maybe you're part Indian from, the Comanche tribe, and you give out your information to be able to receive certain benefits for being an Indian or part Indian. So there's just a lot of voluntary disclosure options. But what, again, I want you to recognize your part in this as well. So not only do you have a part in privacy, but you also have a part in voluntary disclosure. And that word voluntary emphasizes that you have a part in this. Okay. So along those lines, I want you all to understand what the OECD Fair Information Practices are, and I'm going to upload a document to our files section that describes all of the OECD Fair Information Practices. But this is, OECD stands for Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. There are 8 privacy principles called the Fair Information Practices, and they help keep your information private and reveals only necessary info for government and business. Okay, so that's what the OECD Fair Information Practices are. And again, I'm going to upload a document that has a description of all of these. Okay, so I want you to also answer this question in the discussion question section. If we already reveal so much about ourselves, how private are we really? And is there no privacy at all? So think about what we've already talked about with privacy and voluntary disclosure, all those different things. How private are we? Is there really no privacy at all? Just really think about that and answer that in the discussion questions of our course. Okay. Next, I want to talk about the European Data Protection Directive. Okay. They also have something called the European Cosmetic Directive that basically displays all the different ingredients that are banned from Europe's products. But there's something also called the European Data Protection Directive. Okay. In 1995, Europe adopted the OECD Fair Information Principles. Okay. And in the European Union data, you are protected no matter what. Okay. Now, if you are not a European Union country, you cannot request information without similar principles. Okay. So basically, what these principles do is they help keep your information private. And so if you don't have these certain principles, and again, you can check the files section to see a complete description of the 8 privacy principles of OECD Fair Information Practices, then you will not be able to access any information from a European Union country. Okay. Now, here's why privacy in the US is important. Okay. We do not have any type of OECD standards. Okay. So we have something called situational privacy laws. Okay. These are known as sectoral. If you've heard the well-known term private sector, that's where this comes from, okay? It applies to different sectors of society, so different groups, different social groups, okay? This doesn't apply to everyone, okay? We have privacy laws based on certain situations, not on the complete full picture, okay? So that's why we do not qualify for OECD standards. That's why we don't have them. Okay. Now this really affects international business. Okay. Now, if you're somebody in the US who has business internationally, you need to establish a safe harbor. Okay. Which means the company itself must adopt OECD standards. Okay. That means that your US company would need to adopt some OECD standards before you try and access information from a European Union country. Okay, so make sure that you keep that in mind, especially for those of you who may be wanting to have a business that may go international. Okay. And question I would want you to answer is, how can Target discover that a woman is pregnant without the purchasing of a pregnancy test? Now, of course, the obvious example is if they have a baby bump. I actually had a student, share that in class. But really, I want you to think about this from a data standpoint. Okay. How can Target discover that a woman is pregnant without purchasing a pregnancy test? Okay. Now, that's where we introduce the concept of data mining, the statistical analysis of huge information archives. Okay. So the reason why we can determine that a woman is pregnant without her purchasing a pregnancy test is her purchasing habits, right? We can analyze information using her pregnancy habits, okay, her buying habits for pregnancy, right? So I'm going to give you guys 3 examples of something that you probably already know about, but then you may not. So I'm gonna talk about this with 3 different examples. So Target Red Card, I already mentioned that. Okay. They are able to analyze your buying habits, but also give you discounts for a 5% discount or something like that. But then also, that's how the issue with Target happened is, Target Red Cards, you know, that Target breach happened, and then all the Target Red Cards that were there, um, they um, they were able to get into certain accounts with that. So um, that was the issue with the Target breach. Now this teen pregnancy one is a little bit funny, so just kind of bear with me. But there was actually something that I actually had heard about. I heard about a story about a young man, or actually a father, who, was really upset because his teen daughter was getting stuff in the mail from Target about pregnancy, because he's like, surely my daughter is not pregnant. But sure enough, we found that she was pregnant, and she was buying all those different things in the store because she was pregnant. And Target analyzed her buying habits, and started mailing her things in the mail about teen pregnancy, right? So that's why she started getting those in the mail, because she truly was pregnant. Okay. Um, last example that I have for you is social media programming. Okay, there are ways to analyze on social media through data mining. Um, different habits of and posting habits of people on social media. Okay, that's actually something that I'm going to be doing for my dissertation when I start at OU next year. Is really getting into the programming side of social media and really understanding, okay, how they do certain things, and really analyzing statistical data based on a certain demographic. So you can do that as well, just with about anything. You just kind of have to, be careful, what it is that you are analyzing, and just really be aware of your spending habits as well, and understand that companies and places are actually analyzing your data. There's two types of tracking: online and cell phone. Online is basically the practice of a website automatically sending details about your visit to other content providers. The example is Amazon. Whenever you see that when you first log into Amazon and you see, oh, these are, recommendations based on what I last bought, that's online tracking. Cell phone tracking, the positioning information available from mobile devices used to map your physical location and movements. Example, Facebook Messenger now. Okay. Facebook has now put those capabilities in Facebook Messenger. Okay. Now also, your GPS on your phone, the Find My iPhone feature, all that is part of cell phone tracking. Okay. And even in Facebook now, I have gotten notifications where it will say if somebody is nearby, which that can be pretty dangerous. Okay. Especially if somebody is, tracking, because you can easily track people now. So you just have to be careful, on what it is you're sharing. And, you can actually turn off your location. You'll just get some annoying pop-ups about how you need to turn on your location in order to be able to use certain apps like the GPS. But you want to be very careful with these types of apps. Okay. There are four types of digital security. Okay. Um, Number one is mischief. Okay. These are computer infection, software trashing, and viruses. Second is information theft. The most common is identity theft. Um, there are these four types of computer security risks. Number three is spying. So people can actually log keystrokes as well. Okay. You can record unsolicited videos. I know there are plenty of stories of, you know, sexual predators recording unsolicited videos of girls and things like that. Okay. And posting them. It's just crazy. And compromising secure online activities. Okay. Um, Resource theft is if you're generating spam or you are controlling the computer or device. Okay, so those are just four different types of computer security risks. Okay. The most common computer compromises are malware, which is basically harmful computer software. Okay, that's why you need to make sure you upload or buy antivirus as well. Um, Virus is there's three different types of compromises with that are the most common: ride along, hiding in other software, and reproducing when software runs. Okay, so that's what ride along does. It just rides along just throughout your computer. That's why it's so important to make sure that if you realize that you are a victim of a virus, you need to turn your computer off so that the virus does not keep riding along in your system the more you keep uploading different things. Okay. That's why it says it reproduces when software runs. And the worm is found in email attachments. That's why it's so important to not open attachments or click on links in emails that you do not recognize, especially if it shows up in your junk mail. and it's from someone you don't recognize. This reproduces and sends to everyone on your list. Okay, so it sends to everyone on your email list, everyone in your contacts, all those different things, and this moves on its own. That's why it's called a worm. Okay, the Trojan. Okay, it's an unexpected gift. Okay, and it runs unwanted programs on your device. Okay, so instead of just telling you that you have a bunch of things wrong with your computer, it will just pop up certain things and start running unwanted programs on your device that's very difficult to close. Okay. So how can we prevent any compromises or harmful situations with our devices? This is another question I'm going to have you answer in the discussion questions. Now, some tips that I have for you. Safe computing. Always turn your Bluetooth off. Okay, if you are not using it at all, I know there are a lot of cars now where you can connect your Bluetooth. Turn it off when you are not using it. Okay, keep your devices locked. Okay, you want to make sure that you keep a passcode of some sort on your device. And the reason why is because if you ever lose your phone, or your phone may be laying down and a little child may pick it up, or somebody may try and snoop through your phone, they don't know your password lock. Okay. The only person that knows my password lock is my husband, and vice versa. Okay. Nobody else knows our password locks. Avoid clicking unknown attachments. Like I already said, you know, if you don't know who it's from, don't click on it. Okay. And then avoid any pop-ups. Okay. There are a lot of people out here who are doing these different pop-ups like you won $1,000 Walmart card. Okay. Why would they do that to you? Okay. Who would offer you free money just out of the blue online, just popping up? Okay. Avoid those because they are most likely scams and spammers. Okay. Make sure you have a purpose for using your computer. Don't be on your computer just idly scrolling along. That keeps you, or that causes you to click on things that you don't need to click on, and you just start, clicking on stuff. Have a purpose when you are on your computer, and be skeptical. Why would I tell you to be skeptical? If it's something that you don't recognize or that you don't understand, or something that's unknown, be skeptical of it and research it and make sure that it's legit. Okay. And along with that, use extreme caution. Okay. You need to be just as safe as online as you are with people in person. Okay. You wouldn't randomly just get in a stranger's car. Okay. Same thing. You would not randomly just communicate with somebody that sends you an email that you don't know. All right. Especially if it's in your junk mail. So make sure you use extreme caution. Now, we know that life is not perfect, and sometimes you may have things come up where you may realize, oh, there's a virus on my computer, or oh, I didn't realize that I clicked on that and now that's messed up my computer. In case of that type of emergency, turn off your computer immediately, not just sleep and not just standby. Because what happens when you turn off the computer is if there's a virus running on it, it completely stops it. Okay. So, as you know, when we are sleeping, our bodies are still running, our hearts are still beating, our lungs are still breathing, all those different things. So it's the same thing with the computer virus. If you just put it on sleep, it's going to continue running. You need to turn the computer off immediately. Okay. After you do that, you can search the web on a different device to find out what it is that actually happened with your computer. Okay. If you need to reboot the computer now that you've figured out what has happened, use an external source to do that. Okay. And if you cannot clean your computer, just simply wipe it. Okay. Simply wipe the computer. Okay. If you find that you have a virus on the computer, my best bet would be to search the web on a different device on how to wipe your computer. Because I can guarantee, especially if it's a Trojan, those unexpected gifts, that starts running programs on your computer, it's going to be very hard to get those to get those viruses or those programs off. So the best way to do that is to just search on another device how to wipe or clean your computer and completely start over. Okay. As long as that virus has not completely tainted your computer or hard drive, you can wipe the computer and completely start over. Now, I had a situation where a hacker tried to get in through my computer through the fake blue screen of death. And how I noticed that it was fake was because I could still see the browser. And it had a number on it to call. And knowing it was a hacker, I decided I wanted to call the number. And he starts asking about, my age and stuff like that. And I say, well, why do you need to know my age just to help me? And then he kept asking, how old are you? And then he was like, you know, you need to think before you call. And of course, I already knew that that was a hacker. But at the same time, he was trying to get me to give him information, basically fishing for my information by calling the number. So be careful with those people. All right. And how I noticed once again that it was the blue screen of death is because it came through my browser and my computer was still up. So what I did, knowing what to do, I just deleted the browser. I left it off for about 2 weeks. I deleted it, and then I closed all the unwanted programs and things. Um, and of course, I restarted the computer and whatnot. So I knew what to do. But not every case is like that. So that's why you must turn off your computer immediately so that everything can stop running. So what can you do now? Make sure that you're running up-to-date software. This is so pivotal because I know a lot of you may have iPhones and you get so irritated with them saying, update the next update, right? But there's reasons for that. Okay. Most times it's a security breach that they have found that they want you to update the software because they've now fixed it. Okay. So one thing I do appreciate about Apple iPhones is it's so easy to they are very Apple is very good about finding possible security breaches and fixing them quickly. Okay, which is why you get a lot of notices about software updates. All right, so make sure that you run up-to-date software in anything. Okay, always install these updates because they handle bug fixes and any security cracks. And then also install antivirus. If you can't pay for it, you can definitely download a free one. Avast, A-V-A-S-T, is a free antivirus software that you can download as well. And then you have your regular antivirus like Kaspersky and all those other types of Norton antivirus as well. Okay, so just pick the one that's best for you. And then use secure wireless networks, all right? Don't access your personal info on an unsecure wireless network, okay? There's a lot of guest wireless networks out there that don't require you to enter a password, but don't, you know, don't access your personal information on anything that's not secure. Secure wireless network examples are the university Wi-Fi at OBU, the Wi-Fi at home that has a password, and your Wi-Fi hotspot. Your Wi-Fi hotspot is probably the most secure because the password that comes with it is a pretty good password that's hard to guess. Okay, so and then most of the time you're going to be the only one on that hotspot. Okay, so unless you have someone else on your cell phone plan, or you have someone else connected to that hotspot via your hotspot plan, other than that, you're most likely going to be the only person on it. So the Wi-Fi hotspot is probably the most secure out of these three. And then always password protect all your devices. Make sure that your computers have a password for your login, your phone has a password for your login, your tablet has a password for your login, everything, okay? and avoid careless internet surfing. You don't want to just be online searching for anything. All right. So those are some steps that you can take to prevent, privacy and security issues or being hacked by viruses and all those different things. All right. So that's the end of our lecture. This was actually our final lecture from the course. I pray that you learned something from this lecture and from this course. And I'm going to actually be posting some discussion questions later on basically what you learned from this course, and you can let me know the things that helped you most. So thank you for being part of this course, and I look forward to seeing you all around campus. And thank you for taking Fluency in Information Technology, and I hope to see you in another course.